Hello, my lovelies. Sorry about that. We're back. Hopefully, this is going to work now. At least that's the idea. Can everybody hear me now? And can everyone see me? It says excellent connection, so it should be working again now. If anyone has got the other stream still open and live, if you could ping me the link over, because I can't actually let everyone know in the other stream the new link because it's no longer connected. So hopefully they'll just work it out and click and see another video from me. Good, you can all hear me. Wonderful. Is the music low enough? Can you still hear a little bit of music in the background, but not too much? I don't want to be blasting everybody's ears out. I've got so many things to look at on these screens. All okay on my end. Wonderful. Perfect. Okay, should we get back to a bit of stitching now, since that was what we was doing before we was rudely disrupted by technology. Okay, so let's just fling on back over to the stitching. There we go. The stitching's back. Music is a little low, could be up a bit. Oh, okay, let's try this. Now? Can't hear any music. You should be able to hear something now. Fingers crossed. Where was I? There I was. Hey Todd, thank you for coming back over. Thank you everyone for dealing with my technology issues and revisiting and rejoining. Tiny bit more. Okay, tiny bit more. Just so you can hear a little bit of background. How's that? Hello from Connecticut. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me. We did have some technical difficulties on the last live stream, but to be expected. It's the first time that, well, you know I don't live stream that regularly anyway. But on top of which, we're actually live streaming on multi-platform, so we are live streaming on Twitch. Thank you for all the lovely follows on Twitch. I've just been informed by my daughter that I need to be looking at another feed so that I can say thank you for coming and joining and following. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Hello Canvey Island, Carol, local girl, and from Montana. So cool you're having a live stream. I know, I don't do it enough, do I? I really should do it a bit more often. But, well, you know what it's like. But I really should, because I'm actually finding this is actually easier than I thought, doing it this way, than when I actually do just a sort of stitch with me. Oh, now I'm not paying enough attention on what I'm doing. Get it right, Teresa. Lolly, is the music okay now? I don't want to blast everyone's ears out. It's even lower now. I'm not doing very well at this, am I? So glad you're on Twitch too. That's where I'm watching. Fabulous. Thank you for coming and hanging out. It's my first time on Twitch, so this is a whole new thing. So for those that have just joined that didn't already know what I was working on, I'm actually working on Andromeda from Mirabilia. Let me just get the picture back up so you can see. Hold on. Where's my picture? So this is what she will look like when she is done. We've had a few issues with her face, but we're working on that. But at the moment we're working on this bit down here. There's a whole lot of rock. That we're working on currently. Hi, about needle sizes. I got a measuring tape with needle size on it. Cross Stitcher magazine once had it as a free gift. Oh wow! Now, see, I didn't know about that. Oh, I might have to go on the whole Google thing. So it's a needle tape measure. That would be super cool. I might have to invest in one of those if I can find one. Hi Norma, thank you for your lovely message. Welcome from Chicago. It's lovely stitching with someone. I'm also multitasking, cooking a roast dinner. It's got chilly in southeast near the sea. Yes, I know, it does feel like autumn, doesn't it? We've gone from 38 degrees to like 17. It's like, what is happening? And as for the roast dinner, I'm not doing a full roast dinner, but I've got a chicken in the fridge that I'm going to whiz up when I finish the stream. So my child, Lauren, I thought, you know, I owe her, since she's doing so much to help me with the technology on this stream, that I owe her a nice chicken and sweet potato. So, yum yum lol, yeah? What's this? Still very quiet, try around. Hi Southern California, welcome to the stream. Yeah, if someone could, I can see in the chat that people are talking about getting a link for the needle tape measure. If someone could ping that over to me on Messenger, that would be great, because I could really do with that. It'd be really good. Do you find that the glow-in-the-dark Krennic on Andromeda is slightly pointless? Do you know what? I haven't even got to the glow-in-the-dark bit yet. I'm doing all the normal stitching, and then I go back and do the Krennic and the beads last. I take it you've already done it then, Todd. You've already done some of the glow-in-the-dark. I mean, maybe it makes a difference when it's hanging up at night. I don't know. I've never actually used glow-in-the-dark Krennic. So, although Halloween is coming, maybe it's the right time to do a nice Halloween piece. Did I see the lovely Miss Mary Perkins on the chat just a minute ago? Miss Mary Perkins, are you on this chat? Oh, I'm stuck. Let's turn this over. Roast with all the trimmings. Your dinner sounds nice. I don't know. I think I quite like the idea of the roast with all the trimmings and the Yorkshire puddings and the gravy, but yeah, that's not going to happen. Not after doing this as well. It's like you're going to have a throw together roast at my house. I haven't. It's just a few stitches, but seems rather random. Yeah, the glow in the... I don't know if anyone else in the chat has had any experience working with glow-in-the-dark thread, Krennic, and whether it does actually glow in the dark, or is it just a gimmick? Hello, Mary Perkins from Coventry. I thought that was you. It can only be one of two Mary Perkins. There's only two of you in my world. Hi, Louisa. What is my filming setup? How are you filming the stitching? I can't see a tripod. Aha. Aha. There is a tripod. If I was to actually take a picture of how I'm streaming this, you'd all be falling about laughing, because there's stuff everywhere. I've got wires hanging and cameras overhead, and yeah, so the setup that I've got, so the camera that I use to do my YouTube videos on FlossTube is the one that's up there, just out of your shot. That is balancing on a tripod with one leg shortened so that it's on the desk and two legs down on the floor. And then my face is being recorded with a Logitech HD, I think it's a HD 920 webcam. But yeah, so although when you do these, it looks like, you know, there's nothing around me. And in actual fact, when you actually see all the stuff and the lights that are dotted in places, it's quite funny to see, because it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff in this room with me. But it's all strategically placed out the way so that you're not sitting there going, wow, look at all the mess. Come on, Teresa, use your eyes. Morning from across the pond. So on the Krennic glow in the dark, yes, it does glow, but just seems random. Yeah, I'm sort of with you on that one. I'm sure it's there for a reason. I wouldn't question the designers. So Nanette from Stanton in Tennessee, still picking up after the hurricane, 6 inches of rain, but the wind was crazy. All is good. I'm so pleased to hear that. You know, we might moan about our weather over here in the UK, but sometimes when I see on the news sort of what you've got coming your way, that's scary. So, you know, your whole world, your whole house. I know that so many people were affected by it. I've got quite a few people that I work with that are actually based in Houston, and I think they got evacuated. And it's only really when we hear that from over here that you sort of realise sort of how intense it must be. And then obviously then we get snippets on the news as to sort of, you know, the damage that's been done. And it's, yeah, my heart does feel for those people. But it's good to hear that all is good with you and that things are settling down a little bit more now. So what's this? Thank you for doing this. Very fun. I've learnt a lot from your videos. Thank you so much. And hi in Australia. Or good evening, should I say, in Australia. Have you joined the Twitch Stitchers? We have a group. I didn't know that. I'm learning something new. How do I find the Stitch Twisters? No, get it right, Teresa. The Twitch Stitchers. I think I might have to get my daughter to show me where I need to look for that. I went on to, so when I went on to Twitch, because you've got a section for art and then there's a section for, I think, was it craft and making? So I just went on craft and making, but I didn't see anything. So I'm fairly new to Twitch, so it's a new thing. But now that I know that you have a Twitch Stitchers group, I will definitely be checking that out. Stitch Twisters. I know. I'm so bad. So bad. Right, hold on. I need to consult with the chart to make sure that we don't mess this up. So what have I just done? I've just done that bit. I feel like I'm colouring in now. So next up, could actually use, so D317. That's it. I'm back on track, people. Consult with the chart. Yes. What do you decide to do on Andromeda's face? So Candy, on Andromeda's face, yes, because we had a bit of an issue with the face, didn't we? Well, I did. I was quite lucky that when I posted my disgust with how bad the face looks, and it looks like someone sort of, I don't know, rammed her into a tree. A lovely lady contacted me on Instagram and said that she'd have a little look at sort of my stitching and a portion of the chart to sort of see if she could work out where I'd gone wrong. And luckily for me, she did exactly that. She actually told me where it was all wrong. So I'm quite pleased. So apparently it's not much that needs to happen to sort of rectify the problem. There's a little bit of frogging that needs to happen. So I need to unpick some 1/1 skin stitches. But apparently, if I make the small adjustments that she said, it should fix it. So I'm hopeful that that will be the case and that I'll love the face. Because at the moment, it just looks like someone smushed her face. It's not a pleasant look for a lady. Even a lady sitting on a rock. So you're stitching on Mirabilia Garden Prelude. Oh, I've seen that one. That one's very pretty. I think once I've done Andromeda, I might have to give a lavender and lace a go. Just because I haven't done a lavender and lace yet. What did you decide to do? Yeah, I've done that one. I'm trying to keep an eye on this chat and stitch at the same time. Hopefully I'm not missing too many of your messages and comments. Hi, welcome on Twitch. Thank you for coming and joining the stream. I feel that way about Snow Queen's face. Yeah, I don't. Some of the Mirabilia faces are a little bit. I think you just sort of, you either need to follow the chart to the letter, which obviously if you're doing it with the way that the chart recommends, which is normally 2/2, it's easier to follow the chart. But the minute you change it, so obviously Andromeda and all the other, so Roses of Provence and Andromeda are the ones that I'm currently working on or have completed. Because it's not charted with skin 1/1, it gets a bit more intricate when you're then trying to sort of work out sort of the recharting for the skin. And we all know it takes forever anyway, purely because you're doing twice the amount of stitches. So it can be a little bit drawn out. You definitely can't cut corners when you change the skin to a 1/1 if it's not charted as 1/1. So what's this? So silly question, but why do we call it frogging? When did that term come from? Good question. Good question. Do you know what? There is a bundle of knowledge on this chat that will probably know the answer to this, but I confess, I don't know. I don't know where frogging came from or why it was ever called frogging. Doesn't resemble a frog at all, does it? Does anybody know? If anybody knows, they need to put it in the chat so that we're all sort of understanding as to why it's called frogging versus anything else. So Candy says, I'm going to be starting Evening in the Park Tuesday when my new fabric comes in. I bought navy blue but changed it to light blue. Good call. Good call. It's really difficult when you're looking at stitching on Chatelaines and picking the fabric if you're not going for a very plain fabric, because there's so many colours in it that you're always worried that you're going to sort of drown out some of the colour threads. Or at least I am. Oh, so Sky Fox on Twitch has just said it's because of the sound of the frog. Rip it, rip it. Is that really why it's called that? Or is that just like a joke? No, it is. Rip it, the sound of a frog. Oh, see? It's not what you know, it's who you know. I obviously don't know enough people that know anything. Well, it's not something I've ever really sort of thought. I think because I've always just known it as frogging, I never really questioned why it was called that. Good shout, I like that. I've learnt something new today. You've always got to learn something new every day, but that one's a good one to know. Okay, right, so where are we? Still on the same colour. Wow, lots of dark colours on this one. But at least I don't need to worry about counting. I just need to make sure that I get it all in the right place. You've actually Googled. You've Googled the term frogging for stitchers. Classic. Okay, new question. I've heard Teresa say Chatelaine. No clue how to spell. What is that? So Chatelaine is spelled Chatelaine. And if you put in Chatelaine stitching, you should get a website come up. And it is a brand. And they are the most divine charts. Well, yeah. It's the most divine stitching ever. It incorporates lots of silk threads for those that choose to use the silks, lots of specialty stitches, lots of sparkle and beads, lots of, you know, Krennic or petite treasure braid threads. They're just, oh. Maybe one day I'll do a live stream with my Chatelaine, evening in the park. But yeah, you need to go and Google it. But look, don't blame me if you end up down a rabbit hole because of it. Okay, just saying. Because yeah, it's one of those things that when you see them, you're like, oh, I need to have one of those. They take a long time, admittedly, but so worth it. I think they're worth it. But then, for those that follow me on YouTube, you know my Chatelaine is like, yeah, it means a lot to me. Yeah, don't blame me. Just bring the snacks into the rabbit hole. Love it. They are very expensive to kit up, though. Admittedly, they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. Some people that I know that some people, because of the expense of the types of threads that they use for them, they actually switch the colours out and sort of convert to a DMC, which does make it a lot cheaper, but you obviously won't get the same effect, or it won't look the same as the ones that have been charted, because you can never actually match the colours. A lot of the threads that they use, some of them are even discontinued, and you know, you've got some people that have got sort of the original Chatelaine with the flosses that were called for, which are now no longer available, so we do have to switch out on some of those threads anyway. Todd, don't fall down that rabbit hole as well, and if you do, don't blame me. It's not my fault, okay? I don't know anyone that's... I think as long as you can get your head around sort of the complexity of some of the stitches, because a lot of people find specialty stitches a little intimidating. I personally was of the same opinion until I actually started it, and then realised that once you've got your cross stitching in place and it left the holes to put the specialty stitches in, it sort of makes it so that it's a lot easier than you thought it was, as you know from my experiences. I mean, I'm not a particularly seasoned stitcher. I've only been stitching for, well, almost as long as I've been on YouTube. How long have I been on YouTube for? 5 years? 5-6 years? But I've come a long way in those 5 or 6 years. So I think if you give it a go, you're actually pleasantly surprised that it's not always as hard as it might look, even though it might look a little intimidating to start with. Hi, welcome to the chat. First time to the chat. I don't actually do these live streams very often myself either, so we're all firsts here. So what's this? When the European cross stitch sale, I bought my first Chatelaine chart castle, but it's way too pricey to kit out. I know that the European cross stitch company do have some sales, or at least one sale a year. As to when they are, I can't say that I know personally. I don't really think that they actually announce them either. So yeah, they are expensive though. But if you can find the right time when the sales do take place, then you can get a bit of a bargain on them. I need to get my stunning pattern that I showed you yesterday done and finish a gift to you. And then I'll treat myself to a Chatelaine. That's what I like to hear. Get all of your projects done before you start delving down another rabbit hole. Yeah, we all say that and end up with a ton of whips and a ton of projects that we're working on. Oh, Skyfox. So you are a Hade stitcher, are you? You just got your first Hade Story Keep White 9 Tail Fox. How are you finding it? Is it all going well? Practice on a separate. Julia says, yes, I do. I do that on my Chatelaines. Cross stitch first, then special stitches. It works for me. I practice on a separate bit of scrap material first. That's always a good idea. Always a good idea. I always find though, if I try and do it on a scrap bit of fabric, because it's just a bit of fabric that I'm trying to do it on, I still can't do it. But I can do it on the actual piece, believe it or not. Sorry, I missed the beginning. Can you tell us the name of the beautiful fabric you're stitching on? So the fabric that I'm stitching on is... It's a Chromatic Alchemy fabric, 25 count in the colourway, she says. Let me see if I'm good enough to have it in the bag. No, so we'll consult with the phone just so that I can tell you, because I don't know. Hold on, people, let's have a little look. Okay. So this is, yeah. Oh no, I'm wrong. This is not a 25 count. This is a 28 count Lugana by Chromatic Alchemy in the colourway Cyrus. There we go. Where are we at? Where is the best place to buy a Mirabilia kit? One which you pick to do for a first time for a Mirabilia? Good question. You can normally get the packs, the charting packs. I know that I think Lakeside Needleworks do them. I could be wrong. If not, Crafty Kitten in the UK, she does Mirabilia and packs. And Pole Stitcher Designs, or Pole Stitchers, they normally do the kits for the Mirabilias. A first time Mirabilia, maybe consider doing a fairy first. Something like that before you go with sort of... Depends on how much experience you've got of doing stitching. If you're quite experienced, then you should be fine with most Mirabilias. But if you're quite new to it, then maybe a fairy might be the better option, because it involves a little bit of beading, a little bit of sparkly thread, a bit of backstitch, and that way you could break yourself in gently. But like I say, if you're quite a seasoned stitcher and you've done all the above, then you should be fine with almost any Mirabilia chart. They're very, very good at explaining what it is that you need to do and what threads you need and how to stitch it. Oh, come on. Where am I going? Water Floss Up says, afternoon, I was about to do the washing up. Now I'm sitting down stitching. Good idea. Who wants to go and do their washing up? That can wait. Washing up's always going to be there. It's like washing and housework, isn't it? That'll always be there. If you can find yourself something better to do, definitely do that. Especially on a lovely Sunday like today. Nice bit of Sunday afternoon stitching. Why on earth would we want to go and do our chores? Not sure my husband would agree with that. I stitch a lot, but a bit back to knitting. Greetings from the Netherlands. Hello from the Netherlands. Thank you for following those on the Twitch. Working on my first Haid too. First time Haid stitcher. Go Haid stitchers. That's what I like to hear. Lots of little X's and not much of anything else. But wow, they do make a statement. They're so cool. Teresa, since you were using the manilium frame, I was wondering if you noticed even weave fabric being stretched lengthways and your Chatelaine mandala ending up not symmetrical. No, I haven't noticed that. I'm always quite mindful because I don't stitch all of it and then go back and do the beading. I sort of do the beading as I go, and I think because of that I always put a layer of what do you call it, of felt between the stitching and then when I turn the bars. So I think because of that there's really not too much tension on the bars. So although I have my fabric fairly taut, it's not as taut as, say, maybe one of my Heaven and Earth designs, for instance, where I will like crank it so that it's like drum tight. I tend to sort of ease off on the pressure. I think because of that I don't get any distortions. But then in saying that, I don't get any distortions on my haze either. I've never actually found that it distorts the fabric. And so far, she says, fingers crossed, I haven't noticed any stretching of the material on the Chatelaine. Famous last words. Maybe you should ask me that sort of when it's finished and then say, does it look stretched now, Teresa? But no, on a serious note, no, that hasn't happened as yet. Got to say, I can't wait for my stand get done in here. One hand stitching is killing on the wrist. I can, well, for those that have followed me on YouTube since the beginning, you'll know that I've only ever been able to stitch two-handed. I've never been able to stitch anything other than two-handed. I learnt to stitch two-handed. So, but I know that on the odd occasion when I think I have tried to do stitching with one hand, and yeah, it didn't work out very well for me either. So yeah, that's a good idea. So for the lady that was asking the question about the first Mirabilia, a suggestion of a good one, Lady Justice is a good one to start with. Working on my first Haid, sorry no stand yet, on my Christmas list. What a great place to have it. Now that I've got sort of quite a few options for my stands, I can't imagine stitching without a stand. But again, I've never done it any other way. Woohoo, first time Haid stitcher. So I ordered the same stand that Teresa shows in Floss Tube 65, the Velga Patoki, I believe. You ordered it and then they take several weeks to build and they're charging you and the shipping. That's the stand that I'm actually currently doing this on. And it is like my go-to when I'm just sitting here stitching. So Sarah's Crafty, I've cross-stitched dimensions kits and gold collection kits for a long time. Had a break from it for some years. Picked cross-stitch back up again this year. Good for you. I have to be honest, I've never really managed to get on very well with the dimensions kits. Well, any of the kits. Where are we? Okay, so here we go with all the black. We've got a lot of black to stitch. Dawn stitches in hand. Oh, there's a lady at one of the retreats that we go to. I think she's from Wales Way. She's got the most amazing piece of stitching that she's working on, and she stitches in hand, but it's enormous. But she said she quite likes it. She can only really stitch on it in the winter because it's so big. It's like a blanket. So she just has to sort of like wear it over her. It's that big. But it must be so much better if you've learnt to sort of stitch in hand, because you can sort of stitch anywhere and everywhere. Whereas obviously I can't just stitch anywhere or everywhere because I can't stitch in hand. So ups and downs, people. Ups and downs. Have you tried pin stitches to start and end threads? Those work for me for the full coverage. I have like my own little unique way of how I start a thread and end my threads. I just sort of, yeah, it's not a pin stitch, it's basically just the X. But it secures it without me needing to sort of do anything. And I only do that when I'm working 1/1 on 25 count. Because everything else that I'm working on is 2/1 on 25 or 28 count, but then I do a loop start method. So my first Mirabilia was a mermaid bluebird. Oh god, the chat's moving too fast. Hopefully before the end of the year you can stop being distracted. Stitching in a sow again at the moment. Yeah, I don't get on with sows. I looked into it after I saw the video and it looks perfect for my situation. So glad you did a video on it. Also the Annie's Keepers after your video for beginner stitchers. Yeah, I love my Annie's Keepers, she says. Wouldn't be without them. I'm still in the processes of switching over though. I've still not switched over completely from bobbinated floss to my Annie's Keepers. But I always sort of said, because I have a full set of DMC plus stuff that's boxed for stuff that was already started, that I would phase it out as and when new things started. So I'm still sort of between systems, let's say. But I do like my Annie's Keepers. They're just so much easier. And I don't need to worry about my threads being all kinked. I mean, these don't kink because they're on these. And it's so easy to get them off on the backs that you can just pull one strand out and there's none of this winding and unwinding. I don't do winding and unwinding. Just not enough time, is there? Working on Hyde using Q-snaps and Larry. Can't stitch two-handed, wish I could. Technically I know how to stitch before that series, but after watching the series it really changed the way I thought about stitching, and I've gone to Hyde first since then. These videos are perfect for people like me who need the series that shows more information and more detail from beginning to end. It really helped. I am so pleased that it was helpful. The idea was, I mean, obviously it's never going to be overly helpful for people that have been stitching for years and they've been doing full coverage for years. But then in saying that, there was a few people that contacted me and did actually say, although they'd been stitching for years, they hadn't been stitching full coverage for that long, and that there was some tips and tricks of the way that I did it that actually really helped them. And they said it was like, you know, a bit of a game changer. So it's a bit like me. I would never turn my nose up at necessarily someone who, You know, if I'd been stitching Hades for as long as I have, and then someone sort of said, oh, you know, I've got a video on how I do it, I'm always interested to see how somebody else does it. Because 9 times out of 10, they will do something that's slightly different to the way that you do it. And we all know there is no right or wrong way. It's your way. Hey Tina, how good to hear from you. You're not stitching today. Oh, you're doing clay sculpting. I saw that. Was that on I think you had that on Facebook, didn't you? I was like, wow, she's delving into new stuff. Are you doing more crafts now? Been too hot to stitch. Yes, I know. It has been extremely hot. Hi Ada Stitches. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, no, well, it's definitely not too hot for stitching now. It's far too cold. See, that's the problem that we have over here in the UK. It starts off, you know, warm. Then we go from warm to roasting. But then instead of going back to warm, we don't. We go from roasting to freezing. So, Norma Jean, I think it was on the Needlebug channel. She had several videos on stitching 1/1. Yeah, I think she did actually. I'd need to go back and look at her videos. There's no middle ground weather-wise here in the UK. No, you're totally right. But then, hey, we can't moan about it. I wouldn't moan about it in that respect. Because we don't really get what I consider to be severe weather. And, you know, when you sort of see what goes on the news in other countries and the weather is devastating to them and their families, then it just makes me sort of, you know. I mean, for those that don't know, my other true passion and hobby is gardening. So if the weather's not conducive to garden, then I'm stitching. But if it's a lovely heat wave outside, then I'll be in the garden. Here too, it went from a week of 38 degrees to 3 degrees this morning. Yeah, that's extreme, isn't it? Extreme weather. Nothing quite like a bit of extreme weather. $75 in New York City. Nice and cool and sunny. Very nice. Will you show us your garden one day? I have shown my garden on some of my YouTube videos. I have to confess, this year's flowers I'm not overly impressed with. So I had a bit of a problem with slugs here in the UK. And there was a fight to the bitter death. Literally, I was up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning out trying to do slug patrol. And every morning I was going out and collecting, I don't know, 20 or 30 slugs off of my fresh baby dahlias. And most of my garden is things like dahlias. But they seem to really, really like those. So my dahlias only really, they've come out the ground and they're starting to flower now, but they're not anywhere near what they've been year on year. So I promised myself and my mum that next year will be dahlia year. I've actually sourced these special collars that you put around your flowers at the base of the plant. It's not a full protection, doesn't stop the slugs completely, but it does make it so that the flowers have half a chance. So I'm hoping that next year's flowers will be better than this year. But I'm planning on having a big display for spring. So maybe I can share my spring garden once the tulips and the daffodils and the hyacinth all come up, and the bluebells. Norma, just finished making 4 of your fabric covers for the scroll rods. Great idea. Hi Norma, that wasn't my idea, the scroll rods. The scroll rods actually came from Trisha, the left-handed stitcher on YouTube. All I done was sort of made some adaptations to her pattern so that I could fit all of my scroll bars in. But it's, for me, that was another game changer, because that way I can just be really lazy, leave all my projects on all my frames, and then hang them up rather than laying them down. Don't like to lay my projects down if I can help it. And it's strange how we've all got different things that, you know, we like or don't like. Do you keep houseplants? I do keep houseplants. I have lots of orchids. What else have I got? Peace lilies, although the peace lilies sort of didn't do so well. I think that I'd had them too long and didn't repot them. I love houseplants, but I do love cut flowers, and because I love my garden so much, it's sort of sometimes in the summer I have to sort of make the decision what's more important: be out in the garden with the outside garden with flowers out there, or rather than being indoors. So sometimes my houseplants get rather neglected. What's this? Maybe one of those topics of your future videos could be your garden tips. Yeah, you'd have me running around in the garden going, look at the slugs. Look what they're doing to my plants. No, I do love my garden, but I only really see, now this is where it's sort of one of those things that for the first year ever this year I tried vegetables purely because we was in lockdown, and it was like, well, we're in lockdown, so I bought one of those veg truck things and planted some stuff. So I've been yielding some harvest, but that still doesn't, the flowers still win a million times over. It's all about the flowers. So, but I did try the vegetables, but I'm rather selective about what ones I like. So my garden is full of gladiolus, dahlias, roses, climbing roses, aces, cannas, those types of things. But I am very much a fair weather gardener, so I love doing my garden in the nice weather and when spring gets here. But by the time I get to November, then I'm itching to get my dahlias out of the garden, to get them in the greenhouse and put my tulips and daffies in, because my garden, it's an English garden, it's not that big, so there's not enough room for all the flowers that I like for all the different seasons. So the only way to sort of get everything that I'm looking for in my summer garden is to switch everything out, but it can be a bit time consuming. So November I'm always really busy in the garden lifting dahlias, and then I normally give it a week. Normally some bloodfish and bones goes down, or some bone meal, and then I'll put all my tulips and daffodils and alliums back out in the garden, ready for spring. And then that's it, then I don't go in the garden. I might pop it, the greenhouse, I've got a heated greenhouse, so I tend to spend a bit of time sort of around February time. I normally put my dahlias on some bottom heat and get the dahlias started so that I can take my cuttings, and do love my flowers. So Teresa, with Annie's Keepers, how do you manage the colour change being needed for 2 projects at the same time? With Annie's Keepers, how do you manage the colour change being needed for 2 projects at the same time? Oh, I'm with you now. I have more than one. So if I've got a project, if it's a big project, sort of anything over 30 colours, I will make sure, because I've got a full set of DMC plus extras, I will create a whole set. And then if I then need the same colour for another project, if it's a small project that's only going to need, you know, a small amount, then I might nick a little bit off of one from another project. But most of the time, I'll just thread up another one, because I can never have too many. Even if I've got sort of 2 or 3 with the same colour on the Annie's Keeper, when I then put it back into storage, I'll just put them side by side. But I suppose you could sort of borrow them from one to the other project. It's just not something I do, because I like to know that when I sit down with my stitching for that project, all the threads for that project are with that project. If I was to start switching them out and sort of borrowing from another project, then when I then sit down with the same project again and look for that colour, I'll get a bit peeved with myself, because I've got to go on a search to find what I did with the colour. So yeah, no, I have more than one Annie's Keeper with one colour on it. I could have about 5 of them if I forgot it on 5 projects that is big enough to warrant it. What scroll frames do you use, Teresa? I've sewed the fabric. Oh, so mine you have to sew the fabric on. I fear that it'll pull my fabric. I use the Needle Needs frames, the Mirabilia frames. So you don't need to sew any fabric on. But they are really, really expensive, and the wait time for them is, for most people, far too long. I confess that their timing from when they take your money to when you get them is eye-boggling. I personally have got the full set. I think once you've got 1 or 2 of them, you're quite happy to just sit and wait for as long as you need to wait. But that being said, Omanique Factory do the quantum frames, which are, well, from what I hear from the ladies at the retreats, are equally as good as the Mirabilia frames. And the only difference between the two is that the Mirabilia frames are made totally from wood. So the scroll bars plus the stretcher bars with the turners are all made of wood. Whereas on the quantum frame, the two scroll bars are made of wood, but the stretcher bars, the actual bit that you turn to tighten the fabric up, is made out of like a plastic. But they're very reasonably priced, and their shipping is, apparently their delivery service and their shipping is sort of way superior. So if it's a case that you're looking for something that you can switch your projects out on really easily, there's no attaching of your project to the bars, to the scroll bars, then I would say either the quantum would be your best bet if you want it quickly. I mean, I've heard no bad reports about them, but like I say, I've been quite lucky. My husband ordered me a set when I first started stitching, and because I already had a set, it wasn't sort of much of a deal breaker when I had to wait weeks, months, possibly for some a year or so for the order to come in, because I already had some. But I think if you're sort of looking to get your hands on them quickly, especially for the cost, you know, they're not cheap. So you would think that, you know, they take your money and that you would basically have them within, I don't know, a few weeks, month maximum. But that just isn't the case, unfortunately. Tina, houseplants are my second passion to stitching. I would be fine with my houseplants, Tina, if I could make them survive. But my house is a bit like a greenhouse. So the whole back end of, so as an explanation, so my house is south facing. So my back garden is totally south facing. And on that south facing wall of my house is, I think, 8 meters 8 meters of bifold glass. And then I've got a roof lantern, which is also made of glass, which is 4 meters by 2 meters. So when the sun comes out, it's very bright and very greenhouse-like in my house. So you tend to find that the houseplants, especially sort of some of them, because they like sunlight, but they don't like direct sunlight. But it's very difficult to keep them out of direct sunlight. So everything gets a bit scorched. And it gets very hot in here. So being that it gets so hot, and like I say, if the weather's that nice, I sort of forget to water the flowers indoors, and I'm really sort of mainly focusing on the flowers outside. So slowly but surely they normally look a little bit poorly. I tried cactuses as well, thinking, well, it's a cactus, it needs light, so we won't have to worry about that. It doesn't need too much water. And I was thinking, well, there's no fear of that. And I think they've still managed to die. They don't look very healthy. So yeah, so I don't think I did very well with them either. And they're the ones that you're sort of supposed to neglect. Apparently they thrive on neglect, and I'm like, well, I must have overly neglected them then. So yeah, so I've got my orchids that I like, and I've got some other indoor sort of foliage plants and a couple of tree type things, but I just sort of throw a little bit of water at them every now and then. Hello from Hampshire. Can you tell me what count of fabric you're working on, please? This is a 28 count Lugana by Chromatic Alchemy. Tori says, in storage you put all the same colours together. So in storage you put all the same colours together and then use them until they run out. So yeah, so because I've got all of my Annie's Keepers, when I've actually got them as set up for a project, I'll put them on a ring like this, and then that will just hang on my stand, unless of course it's a big project. And if it's a big project, I'll use one of these, which is the project slider. So you put them all on now, so then that will then stay with the project. But then at the end of the project, when I'm done and it's all going back into storage, it'll all go on to something that looks like this, but it has sort of little clips on the sides and it hangs, and then I'll just clip them all on. And then if it's, say for instance, I've got 3 Annie's Keepers of 310, then that 310 of Annie's Keepers I will put together on the storage bar in numerical order, and then just as and when I need them, I'll just pull one off, and then I'll just leave the space on that storage holder, so that as and when it comes back to storage, the space is there waiting for it. So that way, when I need to look for 310, I'll go to the storage and I'll see that there's a space where one project has already got 310 out, and I've still got 2 310s sitting in storage. So that's how I tend to sort of work it. Do you prefer project sliders or rings? Oh, good question. I would say anything less than between 20 and 30 colours, I'll use rings, purely for ease, to fit it into my project bags. But there are some projects, so for my Heaven and Earth designs, I've got some of my Heaven and Earth designs set up that aren't on the Paco thread organisers, and they are on the storage, on the project bars, and I'll use my Annie's Keepers for those. So I think is it Peacock's Lagoon? I think Peacock's Lagoon, I think I've got on the project bars rather than on rings. I mean, I know you can get bigger rings, but then I would have to be flipping them around to find the colour, whereas on the project thing you can just look at it. So it's still all much faster than the whole go into a floss box, unravelling, re-ravelling, putting it back. I made a stand and scroll frames out of PVC piping. I'm an impatience for shipping. I have to admit, there's a lot of people that have done that. I think it was it Pam's Crafty Corner? She done a PVC tutorial on how to do like a Q-snap lap stand thing. And there's a lot of people that actually really like working off of the Q-snaps. Well, you can see this one's actually on a Q-snap. It's only the fact that I've got this little stand. Otherwise, I would probably have done exactly the same thing. Especially for my smaller projects. I don't tend to use my big stands for my bigger projects. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't use my big stands for my small projects. I tend to use the little Q-snaps for those. Love the chocolate bar that you get from the Omnique frames. Yes, I do hear that they give out chocolate bars with their goodies. I haven't got one myself, but I have been tempted, because I tend to spend a lot of time sort of working on my scroll bars. It has crossed my mind that the fact that so many people have raved about the quantum frames, I should really at least get one and just do like a comparison between the Needle Needs ones and the Omnique ones. So I should really sort of give it a go, I think. Tina says, get some Hoyas. They thrive with that. Nothing in my house thrives that's alive anyway. I don't even get the grass from my cats growing. I'm so terrible with plants. Yeah, it is one of those things. You either love a bit of gardening or you don't, I think. I don't think I've ever known anyone that's sort of like, oh, it's okay. You either love it or you don't. There's normally a lot of work that goes with gardening. Once you sort of start falling down a rabbit hole of gardening, it's a bit like stitching, really. So there are a million things that I should be doing right now. You know, housework, cooking dinner, and I'm sitting here stitching. Used to get beautiful orchid. They go like mad. They love the window. Totally. You think my ring is tiny? That's only because it's a small one. That's more for my small projects. I do have a couple of the bigger rings. I'm loving the Annie's Keepers. I keep mine on a ring when doing all my projects. Made my stitching so much faster. Totally. I mean, that was the game changer for me, was that the amount of time that I spent winding and unwinding of bobbins and then putting them back and putting the leftovers back onto the bobbin before it went back in the box. It was like, why am I sitting here wasting so much of my actual stitching time just putting thread back in so that it looks organised in a box? Because that was what I used to do. I couldn't have it all sort of flapping around, and you have to wrap up whatever you're not using again once you've cut your length that you're looking for. So, and it was just like, this is such a waste of time, especially when we're all sort of, well, if you're like me, I work full time. So being working full time, I don't have an endless amount of time that I can just sit and stitch. I do have to sort of think, right, well, if I'm going to sit down and stitch, I might get an hour, for instance. And if I'm only going to get an hour, I don't want to sit there for that hour and spend half an hour of it winding and unwinding bobbins. But for some people, they can't imagine doing it any other way. So again, I think it's all just that personal preference thing. But I personally have found the Annie's Keepers to be a game changer. But again, it comes with cost. You know, once you've set up one thread system of like how you're going to store your threads, and to then sort of have an established thread storage system and a number of threads, to then switch that over to something like the Annie's Keepers, then yeah, that can be rather an expensive adventure and time consuming to switch it over to a new system, which is why I'm sort of between systems. I'm just going to gradually let it phase itself over as and when I run out of threads on the bobbins, rather than trying to take everything off the bobbins and put them on the Annie's Keepers. Hi Gina, how are you? Hope you're well. I used the cheap method. I got empty key rings. And wrote the DMC number on it. That's a cool idea. Are you still planning on stitching the Faces of Fury that is the partner for the first one you did, the Black Swan one? Candy, I am. It's definitely one that's just sort of sitting, waiting, along with half a ton of other stuff. I really do need to be a kept woman. I would have so much more time to do stitching. And if I did that, then yeah, that probably would happen a lot faster. Problem is I get so sucked into my Heaven and Earth designs that, yeah, I mean, you think I've got, what ones have I got on the go now? I've got Alternative Reality, The Story Keep, Life is an Open Book in Paris. I've got Peacock's Lagoon. I've got Mini Red Queen Red Dragon. So yeah, when you sort of look at it like that, it's like, well, there's years of stitching there before I even get to My Faces of Fury. I think it just depends if I get bored. If I get bored enough and fancy a total change, then watch this space. But now that I've sort of fell down the whole sampler rabbit hole as well, yeah. See, before I only ever really stitched the Heaven and Earth designs because that was all I knew. And then Roses of Provence and the Northern Expression Needleworks band samplers fell in my lap, which then exposed me to other stuff. So before I knew it, I went from just having Heaven and Earth designs and full coverage pieces to ladies and samplers and band samplers, and yeah, whole nother rabbit hole, as you all know. Gotta love a rabbit hole. I would love a comparison video of the two frames, as I can't decide which to buy and the wait time is not an issue for me. Well, if I do actually ever get round to ordering a quantum frame and obviously play with it for a little while, then I would definitely do a comparisons video for you, if it would help. Anything that helps. Oh man, total game changer. I didn't even know there was another way, not bobbins, until your video, and it changed my stitching. I hated bobbins. I was sort of the same, but because I didn't really know any better, the only other version that I knew, there was some people that were using the stitch rows and there were some people that were using the floss away bags. But I'm like, but by the time you've sort of, although you're not winding it on a bobbin, if you put it in a floss away bag, you still got the same problem. You still got to find the floss bag and put the extras back in, and then re-put it back into its allocated space, because me being me, I couldn't have them out of number order. They would need to stay in their number order. So, yeah, it was just like, this is not going to work. They were all as bad as each other. And then when I saw the Annie's Keepers, and I'm like, oh, that could be the game changer. And it totally was. I was so excited by them. At first I was a bit like, well, I'm not sure that it'll work, but I'll order the starter pack and see what they're like. But as soon as I started using them, actually using them on a project, I was like, this makes total sense now. Why didn't I have this 5 years ago? I have to thank you for sharing the technique of getting a thread with your needle. I was so slowed down by taking all the threads off, pulling one and then putting it back on. Totally. That being able to just pull one thread off of the Annie's Keepers. So for those that don't know, there's probably most of you that do know, but when we're doing the Annie's Keepers, instead of having the bobbins like this, where you've got, you know, your leftover thread of the section, having to rewind it onto your bobbin, the Annie's Keeper, you can literally just pull one thread off, she says, like so, and everything else stays on there, so there's none of this time wasting. Game changer. it was for me, and I'm so pleased that it's worked out for some others as well, because I only ever share anything that I think has sort of really made a difference to me, and I think if I really like it or I found it to be really useful, why wouldn't I share that with other people? I would want people to share stuff like that with me, because, well, we'd never learn anything or know anything different if we didn't actually have people that were sharing the information. And FlossTube is, well, I don't know, it's like an encyclopedia of knowledge, isn't it? I use Omnique frames and I love them. Yeah, see, so many people say that. Orietta from Italy, she comes to our stitching retreats. She swears by them. She absolutely loves them. Also converted my aunt and sister too, and since they can't afford the keepers, they made their own but punch a hole in plastic bobbins they already used and trim them. Instantly cheap keepers. Totally. Such a good idea. Especially since as the Annie's keepers. To have the Annie's keepers as a full set for a full set of DMC, you're right, it isn't, it's not cheap. So any ideas or any sort of ways of sort of coming up with something that's on a similar basis, yeah, total game changer. Those that can't get any keepers, tips to use the DMC card, cut off the bottom, add a hole, and bingo, a cheap drop. Use this before the keepers. Nadine, recently I bought a nudge stand that you can sit on the table or couch. Only downside is it can't hold a Q-snap, but still one of my favourite investments. I think Caroline Mazzio, I think it was Caroline Mazzio, she done a review on one of those stands, I think. And I think she swore by it. You'll have to excuse the noise in the background, people. I have no idea what it is. Oh, excuse me a minute, people. You'll have to excuse the noise for a minute. It sounds like I have a visitor that's just turned up at my door. So I'll just shut the door. Bear with me one moment. I'm just going to put you on mute. Sorry about that, people. My lovely outlaws just turned up at the door. They have this really wonderful habit of turning up unannounced. No warning, no phone call. And it's quite funny because me and my man had a little joke about this earlier, because we basically turned around and said, the house is my own. There's no one in it other than Lauren, so I'll be able to do my stream and not have to worry. And my mum turned around and went, yeah, unless of course, you know, the in-laws turn up. And guess what? The in-laws turned up. So I sent them away. Bad, Teresa. But it's like, do they not have a phone? Can they not phone people and let them know, or ask if, you know, is now a good time to pop round? And the last time I asked her that, she turned around and she went, no, I'm not ringing you. She said, because when I ring you, you always tell me it's not a good time. Oh dear, no win. So where was we, people? We was talking about stands and all sorts, weren't we? And before I jump head over heels into Hades, I watched your videos about Hades, especially the storage video. Organising your stuff is important. Very, 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 very important. But then I think that's the same with all stitching. All stitching, you have to be a little bit organised, because otherwise it just turns into a hot mess of chaos and you can never find anything. I've got another rabbit hole for you. Do you know the designs by Joan Elliott? I stitched several. Oh, that's the child. I stitched several of themes. She has her own website. I have heard of the Joan Elliott designs. I confess I have not actually ever stitched one. I think they're the ones that are sort of fairies and ladies, aren't they? Those types of ones. Started on Maiden and Dragon this afternoon. Yeah, I have seen them. I've just not ever actually looked on the website to actually order any. And now that you've just turned around and said about the rabbit hole, I'm not going to look, because I have got more than enough stuff to be stitching right now. In fact, I've got too much stuff to be stitching right now. Well, I think we've made really good progress. How are we all doing? Have we been stitching, you know, have you all been stitching along with me? Are you making good progress? Candy, you call them outlaws, we call them in-laws. We do call them in-laws. It's just that I call mine outlaws because they always just, yeah, they're like outlaws because they turn up unannounced every time and they just sort of surprise me. And they always do it when my husband isn't here. And it's like, surely you want to come around when he's here. He is your son. But no. They'll just take potluck and take me instead. Okay. Oh, bye, Carol. Thank you ever so much for hanging out. Tori, hi, Teresa. I have an invite to the Twitch Stitchers group. Can I send you the invite? Totally. Send me the invite. I would love to join the Twitch Stitchers group. Well, better not say that when I've had a glass of wine, eh? So Gina is working on Bella. Where have you hidden the outlaws? Don't worry, I didn't put them in a cupboard, Gina. My daughter just sort of sent them away from the doors, like discreetly, quietly going, Mum's live streaming. She can't have visitors. She can't have visitors because she's on a live stream. Of course, they had absolutely no idea as to what a live stream was. So all I could hear in the background was this discussion of Lauren trying to whisper, explaining to her grandparents what live streaming is. So hence the reason why I couldn't come to the front door. So too funny. So Ali is working on an old project that just needs to be finished. Oh, I've got so many of those that just totally need to be finished. Totally need to be finished. Oh, my neck aches. I'm sort of done with the stitching now, people, I think. I think I'm done. I think we're done. We have been on the stream for a while now. We have been streaming. Somewhere on here it tells me how long we've been streaming for. So yeah, so this stream's been running for 1 hour 24 minutes, and I think we've done about half an hour on the first stream, so that's like 2 hours of streaming. It's on Discord group. Perfect. Thank you, Tori. How do you even say what your name is? Is it TN Tori? TN Tori? Is that right? I need to get down with the Twitch names. Just Derby Lane. I'm diamond painting, trying to get a Halloween project done so I can send it to a friend. I tried diamond painting, it just wasn't for me. Have to confess, it was not my bag. Outlaws made me giggle. I'm not sure my outlaws would agree. Discord invite for anyone else in Twitch chat too. For anyone else in Twitch chat too. Cool. Thank you. As in dynamite. Oh, TNT. As in dynamite. Sorry, I'm following along now. It just took me a little while. Oh dear. Yes, just almost finished one of the trees on my fall fairy. Good for you. Good for you. Pleased to hear that you've managed to get some stitching done. Danielle, I'm watching in the car with the family on our way to beach vacation. I get motion sickness as it is, so I didn't try to stitch in the car. Hi, family. Oh dear, I'm sure your family absolutely love the fact that you're sitting there listening to some random stitcher live stream in the car. Working on a full coverage. I'm a grammar stitcher and I'm almost at 25% of my Haid Mini. Good stuff. Enjoy your special stitchy video. Would enjoy more. I will try very hard to make sure that I do a bit more on the live streaming. Now that I think, fingers crossed, even though we turned down the quality a little bit, hopefully the quality of the stitching and the video on this one was recording well enough for you. It's still staying excellent connection, so as long as everyone was happy with the setup and that it did actually work, then of course where I have time I will be making sure to do a bit more on the live stream. I did actually find this a million times easier than any of my Stitch With Me's that I've just posted on YouTube, because I've actually got something or someone to engage with rather than me just trying to pluck topics to talk about out of thin air, which I'm not very good at. That. So thank you so much. Love your progress and tutorials on Evening in the Park. Tina, you are more than welcome. Like I say, I've never said that I'm an experienced stitcher, but I have learnt a lot on those pieces, and any help that I can give to anyone else, whether they be experienced or not experienced or beginners, then I'm here to share it. What's the floss up? Progress was made, but now you're keeping me company with the washing up. I couldn't tell my 5-year-old to get off YouTube whilst I was just sitting in a chair watching YouTube. Oh well, the washing up had to happen. I'm so pleased that you're getting on with your chores. That's about where I'm going to go now, because I do believe it is time for me to go and put some dinner on. I've had an absolute blast hanging out with you all. Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, well, I say fingers crossed, we'll definitely do another live stream. It's been so much easier. I will need to come more well prepared though, like I did this time, where I've got an outline so that I'm just sitting and stitching and not paying any attention to the needing to count, because, well, you know how messy that gets, and then inevitably I'll go wrong. So thank you so much. I'm so pleased you've all got some stitching done. I'm so pleased that you all hung out with me. So until next time, people, bye for now.